From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Now, Kathleen Ernst has written 15 books for American Girl. Have you heard of American Girl? All right. She created Caroline Abbott, American Girl's brand new historical character. So are you ready to hear about that? All right, please help us welcome Kathleen Ernst.
Okay. Hi. How are you guys today? Are you having as much fun today as I am? How many of you are readers? How many of you are writers? Oh, look at all these writers. Wonderful. And how many of you are American Girl fans? Does anyone remember the name of the brand new character? Caroline. Yes, Caroline. And I was the lucky author when editors at American Girl decided they wanted to create a character who was set during the War of 1812. I was invited to create Caroline and write 6 books about her. Now, does anyone remember the year that Caroline lives? Shout it out. 1812, you're right. Now, 1812 is 200 years ago. So it may seem like we don't have very much in common with a girl that lived 200 years ago. But how many of you love your families? How many of you like to play with your friends? How many of you have a pet at home? How many of you have ever felt happy or sad? See, we have a lot in common with people, even that if they lived 200 years ago. But there are some things that might be a little different between Caroline and your life today. Now, how many of you have a big dream about what you'd like to do when you're grown up, maybe? My big dream was to become a writer. Well, Caroline has a big dream, too. And I'd like to read a little bit to you from the very first Caroline story called Meet Caroline. And you'll find out what Caroline's big dream is. Caroline Abbott leaned over the rail and laughed with delight. "Isn't this wonderful?" she asked her cousin Lydia. Sailing on Lake Ontario was fun any time, but being permitted to come aboard the sloop White Gull on its very first voyage was an extra special treat. "It's marvelous," Lydia agreed. "I'm glad that Oliver and your papa invited us." Caroline's father had built White Gull for Oliver, Lydia's older brother. "You're lucky to get to command such a fine little sloop," Caroline told Oliver, who was steering the ship. "White Gull still belongs to your father," Oliver reminded her. "It will take me some time to earn the money to pay him back." His voice dropped. "I just hope that America doesn't decide to go to war with Great Britain before I can do so." "Let's not talk about that today," Lydia said impatiently. Caroline felt impatient, too. She'd listened to adults arguing about whether America should declare war on Great Britain all her life. Caroline didn't want a war. She didn't even want to think about a war. Oliver said, "It's been 30 years since America won its independence from Britain. Maybe President Madison can avoid fighting another war." Caroline wanted to change the topic to a happier one. "Now that the sloop is finished, you can sail all around Lake Ontario," she said. Oliver grinned. "I'm looking forward to buying and selling goods along the lakeshore. It's a fine way to earn a living." "Oliver," Papa called in his no-nonsense captain voice, "watch that you stay on course, and you girls remember to stay clear of the sail." "We'll stay clear," Caroline promised. Really, Papa didn't need to remind her about every little thing. She'd been born on the shore of Lake Ontario, and she'd been sailing with Papa for as long as she could remember. Papa was the finest shipbuilder on all of the Great Lakes. And one day, what are you thinking about?" Lydia asked. "You have a dreamy look on your face." Caroline hesitated before bursting out with it. "One day, I'm going to ask Papa to build me a ship. I'm going to be the captain." It was her most precious wish, one that she usually kept tucked away in her heart. Beneath her bonnet, Lydia's eyes went wide with surprise. "You can't be captain of a ship." "I shall be," Caroline insisted. There was no better feeling than being on board a sloop on a fair day. Sailing made Caroline feel as free as one of the gulls soaring overhead. Now, Caroline and her cousin Lydia are enjoying a nice sail, and Caroline decides that it would be fun to play on the deck of the ship, and she pulls out a little top. Have any of you ever played with a top? It's an old-fashioned toy. Oh, yes, some of you know what that is. If you make it spin round, and as the ship was swaying back and forth, the girls let the top go back and forth and then tried to catch it. So they were having some fun. But then Papa gives an order that it's time to change the sail. Caroline knew that sailors had to be aware every minute of the way the changing wind affected the sail. Sailors used the wind to keep the ship headed where they wanted to go. "No more play for now," she told Lydia. "Hang on and stay down." The girls squeezed against the rail, well out of the way. Papa stationed himself by the ropes that helped control the huge sail. Oliver began shouting commands. "He's trying to sound like your father," Lydia said. And one day, Caroline thought, "I shall be the one giving those commands." Oliver pushed the tiller hard and let the big sail begin its swing far out over the water. The sloop shook as the wind hit the loose sail. Caroline instinctively clenched the railing with both hands. The top slipped from her fingers and skittered across the tilting deck. "Oh," Caroline gasped. As she reached to grab the toy, she felt the rail slip from the fingers of her other hand. Suddenly, she too was skidding across the slanting deck. "Caroline," Papa bellowed. Oliver shouted a warning. Lydia screamed. Caroline was tumbling too fast to answer. Her hands burned as they scraped along the deck. She bumped against a wooden storage box. "I must stop," she thought frantically. If she got in Papa's way as he wrestled in the ropes, it could mean disaster. If she got tangled in the ropes, she could be injured. And the heavy beam at the bottom of the sail was swinging across the deck with enough force to knock her into the water. Finally, Caroline crashed and rolled and bumped and came up against the far side rail. She wrapped her arms around it and hung on with all of her strength. It felt to Caroline as if the wind would yank the sail from the mast altogether. But Oliver had learned well. He knew just how long to wait. He moved the tiller, and after another little shake, the sloop settled politely on a better course. Caroline struggled to her feet, keeping one hand clenched on the rail. She felt banged and scraped and bruised all over. "Are you all right?" Lydia asked, hurrying to join her. Then Papa appeared, and Lydia stepped back. Papa's face looked like a thundercloud. So Caroline's greatest wish is to become captain of a ship and to have her father build a ship for her one day. But she knows that she worried him when she went tumbling across the deck. She scared him a little bit because he was worried about her. So her father says, "Caroline, I need you to prove to me that you can be steady and strong and make good choices before we even talk about whether you could ever have a ship one day." Well, what happens next? Do you remember Caroline's cousin was hoping that war would not be declared? The wind grows very calm, and the sloop that Caroline and her family are on comes to a stop, and they see some British sailors rowing out to meet them. And the British sailors come on board, and they say, "The United States has declared war on Great Britain. We are taking your ship, And you, Mr. Abbott, Caroline's father, you are now a prisoner. They didn't hurt Papa, but they took him back across the lake to their territory, and they sent Caroline home. So Caroline and her mother and her grandmother are left alone, not knowing when Papa would be able to come back, and they have to keep the family business running and face whatever might happen with the coming war. Now, there are 6 books about Caroline. She has all kinds of adventures. Some of them do have a lot to do with the War of 1812, and some of them are just about adventures that she has with her friends and her family. And it was a great deal of fun to write all of the books about Caroline Abbott. Now, I could tell some more stories, but I'd like to see first if anyone here has any questions about Caroline or about American Girl. Yes, right there.
Did you like writing the books?
Did I write these books? Is that...
Did you like writing the books?
Oh, did I like writing the books? I loved writing the books because I created Caroline in my imagination, and she became very real to me, almost like a best friend. So it was a lot of fun to create stories. And up here.
Where do you buy the American Girl dolls?
Well, you can get the American Girl dolls online, or you can go to American Girl store. And the books and the dolls and all of the accessories are out now. Yes?
What's your favorite American Girl doll?
What is my favorite? Well, of course, I have to say Caroline, because she came from a special place in my heart. And this was the first time I got to write a whole series about one character and to create her. I've also written about Kit, Molly, Josefina, and Kirsten. But I like them all. They're all different. They're all interesting. All right, one over here.
I have an idea for American Girl doll too. Do you know where I can tell them?
You know what? You can write to American Girl. They love getting letters. So you go online and you'll be able to find the address, and they would love to hear from you.
My sister's name is Caroline.
Oh, so she has a special treat with an American Girl with the same name. Okay.
Was she real?
Was she real? No, Caroline is not a real girl. I made her up in my imagination. But I read a lot about real boys and girls, and that's how I learned enough to be able to create her. Okay, the microphone is back there.
I'm an American Girl, and so is my sister.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
How much did the company tell you about the doll before you started writing?
Oh, great question. How much did the company tell me? The only thing they had decided was that the character would be set during the War of 1812. And then I was free to start doing research and come up with some ideas. We didn't even know where she was going to be set at first. And we were all very excited. I actually grew up in the Baltimore, Washington area, so I have to admit it would have been fun to set her here. But some really exciting things happened along the Great Lakes, and I didn't know anything about that. So we decided it would be fun to set her there. And then I created the stories. They did not dictate those to me, but we do have a good team, so I worked very closely with the editors. All right.
Was Francis Scott Key mentioned?
Francis Scott Key is not mentioned in one of the stories, but there are essays at the back of the books that tell a little bit about real history, and I believe Francis Scott Key is mentioned there.
Which Kit book did you write? We love her.
I have written 2 Kit mysteries, Danger at the Zoo and Midnight in Lonesome Hollow. Okay, we got the mic back here. Oh, there we go.
I have American Girl doll magazine.
Oh, wonderful. They're great, aren't they? It's fun. Here we go.
I have 5 American Girl dolls.
Wow, okay. Anybody have a question?
Do you have any American Girls?
Do I have any? The dolls? Yes, I have a Caroline doll. All right.
Is she your favorite doll?
Well, she is now because I created the character that the doll is based on. So she's very, very special for me. All right.
Oh, it's for her.
Where did you write them?
Where did I write them? Well, I live in Wisconsin. In fact, I live very close to American Girl Company, and I have a room in my house where I did most of the work on my computer. And we have the microphone in the back.
How many American Girl dolls series are there?
I believe Caroline is the 13th historical character. And of course, there are modern characters. So there's something for everyone from American Girl.
Why have they taken out American Girl dolls?
Well, that's not a question that I can answer very well. I get hired to write the stories, and a lot of the decisions that are made are not things that I'm part of. But again, you're welcome to write to the company. They love hearing from girls. And I think that as they brought new characters out, they decided that it would just be good to start retiring a few of them. Where did the microphone? Oh, thank you.
Do they have different illustrators for all the different American Girl dolls?
Oh, that's a good question about illustrators. They do work with different illustrators, and sometimes an illustrator does more than one. We have beautiful illustrations in the Caroline books. I had never worked with these illustrators before, so it was fun for me to see what they would do.
Why did Caroline skid across the deck?
Why did Caroline skid across the deck? Well, the ship was tilting, and she was hanging on to the rail, but her toy fell out of her hand, and she reached for it, and she loosened her grip on the rail, and so she slipped and fell. Here we are.
I know that my mom grew up in India, and they had a separate set of books that were the same brand, but they were international dolls.
Yes, they did. That was a little while ago. I'm not sure why they don't have those, but that was a beautiful series, wasn't it?
Are you the one who invented the look-alike American Girl dolls?
Did I invent the what?
The look-alike American Girl.
Oh, no, I have not had anything to do with the look-alikes.
How many American Girl dolls do you have?
Do I have? Well, right now, I only have one doll for Caroline. We have a question up front.
Who is your favorite American Girl doll before you created Caroline?
Oh, before I created Caroline, it was hard to pick a favorite before I created Caroline. I like different characters for different reasons. I love how spunky Kit is. I love Josefina because it was such an interesting place and time. I love Kirsten because she lives closest to where I live. So I like them all.
What Kirsten books did you write?
I wrote a mystery for Kirsten that comes after. You may have read the first 6 books, and it's called The Runaway Friend. Oh, good.
Excuse me.
In the stories, does Caroline like going on all the dangerous adventures, or does she not want to go on them at all?
What a good question. Did Caroline like going on the dangerous adventures? No. She loved going on adventures like sailing, but when it came to things like worrying about the war, she didn't like those adventures at all, and she wished that she didn't have to do them. And Caroline's mother and Caroline's grandmother help her see that sometimes we can't change bad situations, but we can try to make a difference and do better. Good question. And one more.
Do you have accessories for the doll?
Caroline, there are some wonderful accessories, and I have a few of them, and I'm hoping that maybe I'll get a few more. Well, I think we're out of time. I wanted to thank you again for coming to share this wonderful afternoon, and I hope that all of you keep reading, okay? Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.